Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for braving the weather and showing up. I feel like I also need to thank the Speaker of the House and the President for timing their State of the Union presentation to coincide with that of the school. So I was joking with someone last night at the Medical Staff Awards Dinner for University Hospital that there are three versions of this talk. There's the 1-minute version of the talk, there's the 40-minute version of the talk, and there's the 3-hour version of the talk. I'm going to do the first two. So for those of you who want to leave, the state of the school is great. As always, I think we start by recognizing our former members of our community here who have passed away in the past year. Many of these have been mentioned in the weekly newsletter. I wanted to call special attention to Maureen Garrity, who many of you know worked here for 34 years, recently passed away. And 2 weeks from today, just to my right, your left, in Krugman Hall, there'll be a memorial service in her memory, and I would encourage all of you who can to attend. She had a profound impact on our school. And on a brighter note, we have a raft of people who have, as is popular to say in nowadays, entered the next phase of their careers, retired from our faculty, and are moving on with the next phase of their lives. And we deeply appreciate the service that all of them have provided to our community. So. Always like to start with reminding me and all of us of our three missions: patient care, teaching, and research. And the three-legged stool is a popular visual representation of this. I particularly like this three-legged stool because of the interconnection of the legs at the bottom as well. We are going to review our current state in all three of these regards. The structure of the talk today is we're going to talk about where we are. I feel like I have an obligation by tradition to share a bunch of numbers with you. Talk about some immediate challenges that confront us in our daily work here on the campus. Talk a little bit about two bigger issues. One of our missions includes caring for the underserved, and we're going to review our performance in that regard. We're going to talk about where we are in curricular reform, the what and the why, and then I think set the stage for some longer-term priorities and plans for over the next 5 years on the campus. So we have, as we do every year, to welcome new leaders in various leadership positions on the campus. These are listed in alphabetical order, so you'll see that we have 4 new department chairs here, a new director of the Cancer Center, and a new director of the Anschutz Health and Wellness Center, and a new director for the Center of Children's Surgery. A mixture of internal and external recruits, and I thank all of them for accepting the opportunity to assume these important roles for us. So a few of the numbers here. These are our total revenues over the last 5 years. So for the year that closed last June 30th, we closed the year at about $1.6 billion. And this represents a trend of just under 10% compound annual growth rate. Driving a lot of this growth is our CU Medicine revenues, which this year touched on $1 billion at the close of business. Matched with that is an increase in the size of our faculty. So we are up almost 40% over the past 4 years. And judging by the stack of letters that appears in my office every Friday afternoon, that trend will continue this year. We're busy, as all of you know. And our friends in the CU Foundation and our faculty members who engage with patients and other foundations have also been busy. Last year was a record year of fundraising for this campus. Now, these numbers represent true philanthropy. These are not foundation grants and other things that run through the Office of Grants and Contracts. And I can't look at this graph and look around this campus without saying that we need to thank the Anschutz family for their ongoing partnership and support. We had two huge gifts this year from the Anschutz family. Sue Anschutz Rogers made a substantial commitment to the Eye Center that now bears her name. And Phil Anschutz and his family and their foundation made an enormous pledge for both the new building and for our academic programs over the next 5 years. And those gifts in the past and the ones that we are realizing now have had a profound impact on the velocity with which we can change things on this campus. So a few more numbers. As Dr. Zender will tell you, the Office of Admissions is busy. We're up about 1,200 or so applications over this time last year for the class of 2023. The number of spots has not changed, so it makes the winnowing process more difficult. We are approaching 1,200 trainees that are under our umbrella, and we're responsible for over 3/4 of the resident training in the entire state of Colorado, which in turn feeds the physician and other trainee workforce in the state of Colorado. And we are increasingly a regional and national destination for patient referrals. Both Children's Hospital and University Hospital now have established referral networks across the Rocky Mountain West. This past year at the University Hospital, about 12 or 13 patients a day on average are transferred in from other hospitals throughout the region, which demonstrates that the level of service here is unsurpassed in the Rocky Mountain West. We're advancing clinical research. We have almost 1,500 clinical trials open on this campus. We're actually approaching the first time where we can actually have an accurate count of how many clinical trials we have open on this campus. And are, when appropriate, pushing those trials out across our partner networks to reach across the state of Colorado. And as the Chancellor will be happy to tell you, this campus has more extramural grant funding than any other campus in the state of Colorado, including our close friends up in Boulder. And last year, that totaled over $500 million, about $518 million of extramural funding. And we continue to try to build a sustaining mechanism to support our faculty who are engaged in these activities. We're up to 143 endowed chairs now across the institutions. And for those of you who like all these numbers, we have a website. For those of you who are old school, we have boxes full of the facts and figures 2018 that you can pick up on your way out. So, immediate challenges. Space. I see a lot of nods in the audience. Everybody acknowledges this. Educationally speaking, we're sort of at the limit of the number of medical students we can accommodate for a variety of reasons, one of which is our simulation center, CAPE. We're out of faculty office space, particularly for clinical faculty. We're almost out of vivarium space. And with the arrival of new research recruits on this campus, that's a need that we need to address. Both of our main hospital partners on this campus, Children's and University Hospital, are experiencing record volumes and at many times of the year are over full. And access to those services, such as operating rooms, is becoming increasingly challenging given the growing demand on this campus. One thing we are not out of I feel obligated to mention here is wet lab space. You'll hear this theme come up again during this talk. We have, by most measures, as we euphemistically say in management speak, opportunities for improvement in the efficiency with which we use our wet lab space. And then we have some open leadership recruitments that we're pursuing as we speak. So the short-term and long-term answers to the challenges I just outlined. Number one is we're remodeling the first floor of A01. So those of you who like to cut through there in the snowstorms realize you could not do that today. And the new Anschutz Health Sciences building, which will have in it new faculty offices. We'll be able to consolidate our behavioral health programs all in one place. We'll be able to move personalized medicine into that building. We will relocate a lot of health services-oriented research under the same roof to promote collaboration. We will, if we can find the money, build out the vivarium that is penciled in for the basement of that building, which is 29,000 square feet, which will be connected by tunnels to the existing vivarium infrastructure under RC1 and RC2. And we'll have a new simulation center there, as well as a relocation of the clinical research center associated with the Colorado Center for Translational Science and Research. So the A01 is our experiment in something other than creating a hall full of 8x10, now 8x8, soon to be 8x6 boxes for faculty, by some more common workspace with schedulable individual offices and conference rooms, but some open group area. And that's scheduled to open late June. And hopefully will provide a new home, particularly for clinically active faculty who need a place but are often rounding in the hospital right across the street. And then the Anschutz Health Sciences building, we had the official groundbreaking on January 30th. I think the trees came down this weekend. The parking lot is being excavated, and soon there will be a hole in the ground. So 2.5 years from now or so, somewhere between 30 and 34 months, depending on which architect and contractor you ask, that building should be ready to be occupied. And that's 390,000 square feet of space, and will host those programs I just mentioned to you. We have 3 leadership recruitments either about to start or underway. The Senior Associate Dean for Finance and Administration, Jane Shoemaker, is abandoning me and retiring. And we are in the second round of interviews of candidates for that position over the next couple weeks. We are in the final stages of a new chairperson for biochemistry and genetics to succeed Mark Johnston. And Dr. Degree has announced that he would like to have 2019 be his last calendar year as the chair of the Department of Family Medicine. So that search will be getting underway shortly. And just to point out what you know, I think instinctively and is obvious, that we have 5 senior associate dean positions, 23 departments, a number of centers, and if you assume a reasonable tenure for all those people, we're always going to have leadership searches going on here. So this is my favorite slide from last year, describing the ecosystem of our campus and how the 3 partners here, Children's, University, and the school, interrelate. So I thought I would talk about where we are with those partnerships and some of our other important relationships. We have a number of examples here of trilateral support for programs on this campus. One is Health Data Compass, the data warehouse that pulls clinical data from Children's, University, Hospital, UCHealth system writ large, CU Medicine, and combines it all in a format and place that can be used to correlate with other data such as genotyping, which was the original purpose. It's hard to believe, but this is year 5 of Compass, and all 3 partners have made commitments to continue funding for the next 5 years. After a lot of back and forth, we're moving all the campus partners onto the Encore Clinical Trials Management System, which is the system that will allow us to track our performance on clinical trials. I think make it easier for investigators to see where they are relative to milestones. We'll provide some discipline around appropriate billing for clinical trials, and will enable us to get progress reports. When fully implemented here, we'll actually be able to know how many clinical trials we have going on the campus, which would be a good thing. And I'm happy to report that Denver Health has agreed to join this on this software platform and put their clinical trials on it as well. And I want to recognize Ron Sokol and the CCTSI team for getting a supplemental grant that provided additional funding to be able to get an unlimited license for the Encore product. The Gates Biomanufacturing Facility gets support from all 3 partners on campus, reaches an important milestone this month when they submit their master file to the FDA and are embarking on producing cell-based therapy for clinical trials here on this campus. And the University of Colorado Cancer Center receives support from all the partners. With respect to our partners at UCHealth, this year we again modified our affiliation agreement with the goal of serving the interests of both parties, providing more flexibility for UCHealth to structure their presence in the community, and providing flexibility for our departments to not only garner support for their mission, but decide where, when and where it makes sense to have a presence in the community off of this campus. They've made substantial commitments to all of our missions, including the Cancer Center, personalized medicine, and academic support in general, in a way that is a departure and, in my mind, a great improvement over what has been the history between the 2 systems. And they are increasing their capacity. So tomorrow morning, UCHealth will issue a press release announcing that the board of the system has approved the construction of a 3rd tower at University Hospital. Anybody who's rounded over there in the past year knows that this is sorely needed. The ORs are full, the ICUs are full, the floors are full. And when all those things are full, the emergency rooms get full. And the demand keeps increasing. At the same time, there will be new community sites that will take some of the less acute volume, hopefully. Highlands Ranch, an outpatient-oriented sports medicine facility in Inverness, a new medical office building in Cherry Creek. All of those things scheduled to open this calendar year, with Highlands Ranch Hospital opening May 7th. Children's Hospital of Colorado, we've had an eventful year as well. We're in the midst of a research strategic planning project for them, and many of the child health faculty and basic science faculty have been involved in a variety of work groups with children's. We are in the 2nd year of our master services contract, which has the goal of eliminating many of the subcontracts that have historically existed between the University and Children's Hospital, trying to reduce the administrative overhead for people with grant funding. This fall, they came on to Encore, as mentioned previously, which was an important step forward. And they, too, are opening a new hospital, this in Colorado Springs, scheduled for the 3rd week of May. And this will be have substantial faculty presence from our faculty, but also have presence from community physicians in Colorado Springs, and will serve as the children's system gateway to southern Colorado, New Mexico, and that area. And to the north, they have embarked on a major expansion of their Broomfield campus, increasing their ambulatory capacity, their number of exam rooms by a factor of 10, and adding new inpatient capabilities there as well. With respect to our other partners, Denver Health remains an essential partner in teaching and education. There are multiple new directors of service there over the past year. As mentioned earlier, they're joining the Encore Clinical Trials platform. They have reorganized their research infrastructure and tried to clarify their research priorities and focus, and created a new board committee for research and education. And they finished the year in the black, which is a good thing for all of us. Our colleagues at National Jewish, I would highlighted three things here. Richard Martin has announced that he's going to retire as the chair of medicine there, so they've embarked on a search for a new chair, which is an important partnership for us. We have renewed our commitment to sharing certain research cores, most notably this past year, the transgenic mouse research core under the direction of Dr. Masuda there, and we're providing support for that. And Greg Downey and his team will be considering the recommendations and implementing some changes as the result of an external research review they had several months ago. The Rocky Mountain VA, we're here at last on this campus, and with the exception of the spinal cord injury unit, which will open up later this spring, are now fully operational. And I think now that their focus is not consumed by the logistics of moving out to this campus, we have the opportunity to reinvigorate our partnership with them. It remains an important training site and an important research site as well for us. And last but not least, we're in the middle of conversations with Colorado State University about the possibility of establishing a branch campus of the medical school in Fort Collins in a shared venture with them, and are in the midst of negotiating a memorandum of understanding around that, and hopefully we'll continue to make progress in that over the upcoming year. So I want to talk a little bit about the commitment to the underserved and the care that patients who are economically disadvantaged receive from our faculty and on this campus and at other locations, because I think there's a popular perception out there that we don't take care of poor people, and that's not true. So thought people should be armed with the data, which is sometimes, but I find not always helpful in talking to people who make policy. So if you don't count people who we see in the emergency room, because HCPUF and Colorado State Medicaid does not want to count those people, we provided care last year to a little over 140,000 Medicaid recipients, which is about a 12% increase over the prior year at a time when the state Medicaid rolls were actually going down. So a substantial number of patients get their care from our faculty. We're moving down the road with the leadership of Ann Fulbrigge and Suzanne Brandenburg, working with partners Salud and MCPN, with Salud being the managing partner, at establishing a federally qualified health center here in Aurora in response to the pretty secure data that there are at least 80,000 Medicaid recipients in Aurora who don't have reliable access to primary care. And it's our belief that if we meet that need of this patient population, we will not only help them improve their health, but will reduce their need for acute care services, and emergency room visits and unneeded hospitalizations will be prevented. We continue to support the Dawn Clinic, which is a student-led multidisciplinary clinic for uninsured patients in the Aurora area. It continues to be one of the most heartwarming and most clinically inefficient operations I've witnessed. But the enthusiasm and the commitment of students from all the health disciplines on this campus, the willingness of our faculty to volunteer, the financial support that the hospitals and the school provide to that clinic are, I think, emblematic of our commitment to our local community. This is a map of all the zip codes in the state of Colorado. The dark gray ones are the ones that we did not see Medicaid patients from last year. But you can see in every county in Colorado, we have provided services to Medicaid patients, and in almost every zip code in Colorado. And this is intentionally small, so you can't read it. This is a list of the projects we have ongoing, targeted at that population, using the upper payment limit supplemental funding that Jane Shoemaker and her team were instrumental in helping us secure. So we've made a real commitment to both not only the patients who get care on this campus, but to telemedicine and other ways to reach out across the state of Colorado to help Medicaid recipients get access to both primary and specialty care. So let's talk about the new curriculum. You can see the vision and mission statement here, and the value and pillars that this is built around: leadership, curiosity, and commitment. We embarked on this after our LCME reaccreditation. That was almost 2 years ago now. Such a pleasant experience. How could I forget it? So the question is, you went through the LCME reaccreditation with the exception of the fact that we don't do enough to reduce student debt and we didn't have enough lockers. We got a pretty good scorecard, so why change? Our collective judgment was that we need to change because the world of medicine is changing. And no talk like this would be complete without invoking a well-known cliche, so I'm going to do the Wayne Gretzky thing. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not to where it has been. And so we think to equip our graduates with the skills they need to be outstanding physicians in 2030, 2035, 2040, that we need to change our approach to medical education. As we all know and are reminded of daily, the amount of data being generated and created in our society across all spheres, including medicine, is exploding. The talk continues to be that we have to focus on population health, even though the reimbursement mechanisms in our marketplace have not matched the rhetoric around that. There is, I think, universal agreement that the cost curve of medicine in America can't continue on its current trajectory and be sustainable over the next couple of decades. And we've gone from being an individual sport to a team sport, both in science and in clinical care delivery. And traditional medical curriculum has largely trained people to practice as individuals. And now we need to do a better job of teaching them how to be a good team member and how to be a good team leader. So here is a graphical representation of what we are trying to accomplish here. And I'm going to boil this down for old people like me who are used to the way medical education used to be, and talk about what's really going to be different about this curriculum. So the first thing that everyone will notice is that the third year of medical school is no longer the third year of medical school. That the primary basic clinical experiences that enable people to start meaningfully interact with patients, learn clinical medicine, and start developing their career plans based on those experiences is now going to be in the second year rather than in the third. The first year will continue to be foundational science. The second year will be these clinical experiences, but it will be in the form of a longitudinal integrated curriculum rather than the block curriculum that has been the majority of our curriculum for the majority of our students up to date. And then after that will be a series of courses that integrate both advanced clinical experiences and a deeper look into the science that underlies those clinical experiences combined at the same time, which is a departure from our traditional structure, and the opportunity for people to customize the curriculum based on what they think their career interests are and to dive deeper into areas where they have interest. In response to student feedback and societal feedback, we are also going to do a better job of educating our students about how the business of medicine works, what the role of public policy is in improving the health of our population, and how medicine interacts with that, so that they emerge with a more global overview of the healthcare ecosystem in America. And I think these integrating advanced science courses provide a great opportunity for our faculty to meaningfully share their cutting-edge research in specialty disciplines with our students, and at the same time exposing them to advanced clinical care in those areas. So this is a big deal to change your medical school curriculum. There's been a lot of work done so far, and there's a lot of work left to do. We have representation from all our constituents, community members, students, faculty members, divided up into teams and working together, rolling out pilots to test various concepts, and then we will proceed into the full-scale implementation phase. So, a few potential hurdles. I'm not going to talk about the characteristics of millennials here. That's not a hurdle, it's an opportunity. One is the looming the looming presence of step one performance over the first 2 years of medical school. Step one of the U.S. medical licensing exam used to be just that, something you had to pass in order to proceed on to get your U.S. medical license. But it has now assumed the role that SATs or MCATs have assumed earlier in students' careers. It's used as a filter by many programs to decide who to offer residency interviews for, and therefore has dominated students' attention, particularly those students who are interested in pursuing highly competitive specialties. So if you want to get the attention of one of our first or second year medical students, all you have to do is say is, this will be on step one, and they will immediately pay attention to you. Conversely, if you think you're teaching these things because they're important, but not necessarily because they're going to be on step one, then you may be at divergence with the interests of the students. So that is a real challenge. This is a different model for faculty. So all of you who have taught medical students in a lecture format over the past several years, or have faculty colleagues who have done, have no doubt heard about the fact that students don't come to lectures. That on a good day, maybe 25% of our class will be in the lecture hall, and the rest will be watching video archived lectures on an application we use called Panopto. I do like to point out to our students that the original Panopticon was the model for a British prison. But it's, and that's been an adjustment for faculty. They've gone from being in-person lectures to basically being TV performers. And this will be a continued adjustment. Much of this activity will be small groups, so the demands on faculty and the number of faculty that we require to deliver this curriculum is going to be larger than a traditional lecture format. And running a lot of longitudinally integrated curricula is complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. So there are real logistical challenges here. I think the benefits obviously, in our estimation, outweigh the logistical hurdles, or we wouldn't be doing it. One of the common things we hear from students nowadays is they don't get to know faculty very well. You know, they're on service with somebody for a week and then the attending rotates off, et cetera. We think converting to this longitudinal curriculum will foster longer and more meaningful relationships between students and faculty, which will produce two things, I think. More professional satisfaction on both sides of that equation. The ability for faculty to more meaningfully assess students and write more meaningful letters of recommendation and assessments rather than doing what many of us are guilty of, which is I only worked for so-and-so for 4 days, so I can't really give you a strong opinion about them. And it will allow our students, I think, to dive deeper into the areas in which they're most interested. So, what's the year 2020 look like for us on this campus? You'll see a rollout of pilots of certain aspects of the new curriculum, and among that, we're going to increase our student presence in the Fort Collins area to basically test whether there's the clinical capacity there to support the clinical rotations required to have a branch campus in that community. As mentioned earlier, our partners are opening a lot of new facilities. This is a big year for both the UCHealth system and for Children's. You will see, after the cranes have now gone away on the east side of the campus, you will see a bunch of cranes going up on the west side of the campus. The University Hospital Tower, the Anschutz Health Sciences Building, Biosciences 3 across Fitzsimmons, Biosciences 5 across Fitzsimmons, the new elementary school across Fitzsimmons, the new Aurora Public High School that's going to be built on the northern part of this campus, as well as the apartment and hotel construction that's going on over there. So for those of you who bemoan the traffic on campus now, this is as good as it gets for the next couple of years, I think. We will see opening up on this campus the first 2 clinical trials of cell-based therapy targeted at hematologic malignancies that were developed by our faculty members and will be manufactured at the Gates Biomanufacturing facility here. That's an important milestone for us. And we're going to fill those leadership positions I mentioned to you. And we're going to continue to promote and grow personalized medicine and increase the clinical implementation, particularly in the area of pharmacogenetic clinical decision support under the umbrella of the Center for Personalized Medicine. All that stuff, I think, is pretty predictable. So let's talk about 5 years, which, of course, is totally unpredictable. Hopefully, the Anschutz Health Sciences Building will be open, occupied, vivarium built. Everybody in there happy, complaining that they have way too much space and offering to give some of it up to their colleagues. Similarly, the third tower University Hospital will be open and busy. Our surgeons will be coming to me saying, I can't believe we have so much access to the ORs. This is great. To come back to our previous theme, our wet lab footprint will be the same as it is now. We may remodel a few areas, we may repurpose a few things, but there will not be a new wet lab building on this campus in the next 6 years. Number one, we don't need it, and number two, we don't have the money to build it. So for those of you whose life exists in that wet lab environment, what you see is what you get. We have plenty of opportunity to grow, and that will require the cooperation of everybody. We will continue. There will be more, undoubtedly more department chair turnover, and we will continue to recruit new leadership to the campus. It's my hope that we will see immunotherapy move from oncologic applications, where it will continue to grow, hopefully moving from hematologic malignancies into solid tumors. But we will also take the knowledge we've learned from our immunology research and that clinical experience and begin to develop new approaches to autoimmune disease. I hope that we continue down the road that we're on, and we see our first clinical trials in regenerative medicine implemented on this campus. There are a number of teams on the campus actively working on potential applications, and it would be great to see those move into the clinical arena. I think the future that we've, all three of our partners on campus have invested in is the continued growth of personalized medicine, not only to provide more effective care, but to begin to develop preventive strategies that are targeted, and that we continue to enroll people in our biobank. How to pay for the genotyping of all those people is a currently unresolved question. And lastly, I hope we have our federally qualified health center up and open, that we have our medical students in there, that we have our residents training in there, and that the people of Aurora feel they have a high quality place to access primary care so that they don't have to wait until they get sick enough to come to the emergency room. And I think if we can accomplish all those things, it would have been a pretty amazing 5 years, or 6 years. And I want to close talking about three new things I want to add to that list, because most of what I've talked about to date has been an extension of activities that are already underway here. One is, I think we need to get more intentional and more organized around bioinformatics. We are generating the data now. That data will only increase as we bring new partners to campus with new devices that generate streams of data, and we need to develop the techniques and the workforce that can interpret that data and generate meaningful information out of it. To date, we have pockets of expertise in this, but it's, I think, not well organized and not as big as it needs to be in order for us to keep pace with where the field is going. At the other end of the spectrum, we need to build upon the strong foundations and the leadership that we've exhibited in primary care and continue to develop primary care models that focus on prevention, well-being, and a diverse workforce that can deliver care in the lowest cost possible location, and take advantage of new technologies to bring specialty care into the primary care setting rather than having to have patients travel to specialists. And that we're fortunate to have a number of national leaders in these initiatives already here, and we need to continue to build around that. And I think related to that is something new. I've talked to a number of people on the campus about this, and that is we know what to do to make America healthier. It's not a big mystery. There's nobody in the United States now who smokes a cigarette who can look you in the eye and tell you they had no idea it was bad for their health, right? I mean, those days are gone. We don't need new drugs for high blood pressure. We need to get half the people who have high blood pressure who don't take their medicines to reliably take their medicines. And we could go through the list: diet, exercise, moderation in alcohol consumption. These are low-tech, not popular things, which would have a profound impact on the health of our society and healthcare utilization. And there are people out there who know how to get us to do things. They work for Amazon, they work for Google, they work for Madison Avenue, and we need to develop an expertise to learn how to get people to do the things that are good for them, and do it in a scientific way, taking advantage of what we know about neurobiology, psychology, marketing, behavioral economics, all of those disciplines. And that would integrate very well with our other initiatives. At the same time, allowing us to pursue what has traditionally been our strength: tertiary and quaternary care, cutting-edge clinical trials, moving science forward, but also improving the health of society at large. And with that, That's the 40-minute version of the talk. I'm happy to entertain any questions that anybody has. Thanks very much for your attention. Now, the usual response here is the total absence of questions, but I see one. Yes.
I'm wondering about the new election with a new governor with a focus on cutting healthcare costs and a legislature that might be able to do more things because it's all the same party.
Yep.
I think that'll impact on the
Well, so for those of you who couldn't hear it, the question was, with the results of the last state elections and now a Democrat predominant House of Representatives, State Senate, and executive branch, what impact is their healthcare agenda going to have on the School of Medicine and on our, I'll expand to say, our campus partners? Well, clearly, symbolically, the first bill introduced in this session was around healthcare transparency. Reporting, having hospital systems report their financial results to a state office. There is no doubt that there's going to be a lot of attention paid to the cost of health care in the state of Colorado, and reflects the fact that an increasingly large amount of the state budget is taken up by paying for Medicaid. What form that's going to take and how it's going to impact us, I think is still totally unclear. I'll tell you, my concern is that there will be well-intentioned but poorly written legislation that will have unintended consequences. So we've been working to try to establish a dialogue with people and offer our help and perspectives so that that doesn't happen. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't share the desire to reduce the total cost of health care in our society. The question is what the levers are. The primary levers that the state of Colorado has, I think, revolve around Medicaid. They can advocate for things in other areas, but they really don't have a lot of influence over the commercial marketplace. We're not a certificate of need state, so they don't approve facilities, applications, et cetera. So I think it's an unanswered question. But the fact of the matter is the Chancellor Elman and I spent some time today with Representative Kennedy, who introduced that hospital transparency bill, and it's very clear from talking to him that this is going to be a continued theme over the Polis administration. And so we need to be productive partners as a part of that, and if they're going to do things that cause problems, point that out to them before it happens rather than after it happens. Dr. Green.
John, could you say more about thinking and what's planned to prepare the faculty for this curriculum change?
So the question was asking me to expand on what we're going to do to prepare the faculty for curriculum change. Well, I'm going to do what all effective deans do and delegate. I think under the direction of Dr. Zimmer and her team, there is going to have to be extensive faculty development because this is not the same approach to teaching that occurred when I was in medical school. And I think an open philosophical question for this campus that we're going to be wrestling with is, are we going to have more teaching activity from a smaller group of people and have that be a bigger part of their professional focus rather than trying to engage a cast of thousands in certain activities? And if we're going to do that, then the expectation is that those people are going to have to be, in the same way we have expert clinicians and outstanding researchers, those people are going to have to be outstanding educators and be held to a very high standard. Seeing no other questions, thanks for your attention. Thanks for coming out in the snow.